Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Beth. I am a homeschooler, a childminder and a mum of 3 in Suffolk in the UK, and I thought today that I would share a little bit of our adoption story and how we adopted our youngest daughter. So I started, I really wanted to make YouTube videos. Sorry, my sister texted me then, that was confusing. I wanted to make YouTube videos because I was looking for videos of A, homeschooling, and B, of adoption stories from the UK, and particularly of families that already had birth children. So when we were looking to adopt, there weren't many families with birth children around. In fact, they searched and searched and searched because I really wanted to talk to someone about it, and they found us one, and we went to visit this one family. It was really hard to find someone. So I was like, right, I can make those videos and then hopefully someone else can find them and they can be helpful for them, because there's just stuff that you kind of want to know, and it's slightly different when you've got your own birth children already. So essentially we went into adoption. We wanted to adopt because we'd always wanted to. Like, we'd thought, we've been together since we were 15, and even from then we were like, oh yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to adopting one day, like that sounds great. But actually when it came, because we'd been together so young, when it came to having children, we were only like 22 when we were like, we want to have a baby. So and we were like, they're not going to let us adopt, are they, at 22? And actually I don't think they would have done. So we had our eldest two years apart, and then when our youngest then, Sam, when he was about 18 months, we were like, right, we'd like to adopt, like we'd like to have another baby, let's see if we can adopt now. So we were 27 when we first started the process, and they said like the youngest people they'd had, like normally everyone's kind of 10 years older, but they said like we're in a very similar situation to other people, so like that was fine. Age wasn't really an issue actually. So we went along to an information evening, and then from there kind of went through, you have someone come over the house and they kind of do like an initial, I don't know, you'd probably call it an assessment, and like see if they think that you're suitable. That went fine, and then they assigned us a social worker and we kind of got into the process. So I'm trying to think what way round it was, because it was like 7 or 8 years ago now that they had started. Whether we did, so they have to put, the social worker puts together a report about you, so they go into like your relationship, your finances, your history, your family background, what you think you can offer a child, why you want to adopt, all that kind of thing, and they write a report that goes to like a panel. They read it, they kind of ask you a few questions, and then they say whether or not they think you're appropriate to adopt a child or not. As I said, I don't know if this is the same for fostering, but this is how adoption works, which we did end up kind of fostering her through a foster to adopt scheme, but I imagine like normal fostering is slightly different, but I don't really know about that. So this is all I can say about is my experience, and this was like adoption. So I can't remember if it is then or before that you go to your classes. I can't remember what way around it was, but during that process we had to go through to some like parenting courses, like adoption parenting courses. They were one of the best things we've ever done. Like, you have children and you don't go to parenting classes, and that would have been so beneficial for us. So as I said, Sam at the time was about 18 months, maybe 2ish at this point, and I thought that he started showing the first signs of having autism then, and he would be really dysregulated and be able to control himself. He'd bite a lot, he'd get angry, whereas Hope had not been like that at all. So I didn't really know how to deal with him, and this gave us such good techniques for dealing with him, and it was amazing because we got to come home, put in these techniques, and they just worked with him. Like, it was brilliant. So they teach you essentially something called therapeutic parenting, which is how you should parents children who have been through trauma, but it really works for autism too. So it's just, you know, helping him to regulate himself, giving him some tips that he could use, playing games with him that help with regulation, doing things like time in instead of time out, just stuff like that. Showing us, yeah, as I said, like these kind of little games, like rolling him up in a blanket, saying he's a sausage, pretending he's a sausage roll, and just really to help that attachment, and that helps them to regulate themselves, and just all these little things have really helped him. And I was like, wow, for everyone else in that course who didn't have birth children, one other couple did, but everyone else didn't, like I was like, oh, you're gonna have to wait to implement these things. And we literally went home that night and did it like straight away, and it was so good, it was so beneficial for him, and for all of us. Anyway, so we were going through that training, and then they were like, oh yeah, so this is before you go to the panel, but whilst, so I think the training happens at the same time as like your social worker comes out once a week or once a fortnight, and then writes this report, puts this report together. It takes like quite a few months. Then during it, they had one session that was about something called foster to adopt, which is when you a couple will foster a baby that is still in foster care, hasn't had the adoption order yet, but is very likely to have the adoption order. So they don't do it unless they're very, very likely. So often when children have been removed before, or in circumstances like that. So I was really nervous because I hadn't, up until that stage, really enjoyed the newborn stage. I much prefer when they're a little bit older, so I was looking for like an 18-month-old, but Josh kind of was thinking a newborn would be really good. So I was really nervous about it. We went to see this one family who had got a birth son and were doing the foster adopt with a newborn. I think their little one came to them at 4 months, and it really made me really nervous because it looked like really hard work, and that's how I remembered my babies to be, and I was like, oh, I don't want to go through all that again. I was hoping we could kind of skip that stage. Actually, in the end, I decided, right, let's just go for it. And it was amazing, and we went to the panel, they accepted us, and then they were like, right, you could get your baby tomorrow. And actually, Mum thought she'd gone into labour that day, but she hadn't. And then a month later, almost to the day, that's when our little one was born. And so again, you don't know what's going to happen. So she was born on one day, and then we got the call the next day to say, oh, there's a little one being born, it's probably going to be put out for foster care, but we don't know, because then it has to go to court and the judge has to decide. So up until this point, they say you hardly know anything about this baby because you're fostering, so you don't have any rights to know anything about them. So up until this point, they're like, don't get anything, don't get car seats, don't get clothes, don't get cots, get nothing, because I think they don't want you to get your hopes up. But I felt, because we've already got two children of our own, that obviously lots of people go into adopt because they can't have children, and so it's like a major thing. And although it was a major thing for us, I felt that I could cope, like if it wasn't that baby, it's fine, I know it'd be another one, and it just wasn't quite as big a deal to me. So I was like, right, let's make sure we've got a cot, and so we had everything in anyway. And thank goodness we did, because on like the Wednesday, they were like, right, it's going to court, and so we'll call you like at lunchtime, and you either have to come and get the baby or not, you know. And obviously they called, and it was like, yeah. So I had to like leave work. Like, I was literally working up to the last minute, obviously. I had to leave work. I went in that morning, I was like, hi to my boss. I was like, I might be going on maternity leave today. So there we are. I think it's called adoption leave, but it was like, it's the worst as maternity leave. So yeah, that's really funny. And he was brilliant about it, and he'd obviously like known the whole process. So yeah, we got the call at lunchtime, and they were like, get here. So on my way, I drove to the supermarket, picked up bottles and milk and nappies, because I hadn't got that stuff, but I pretty much got everything else. And because having obviously two of my own anyway, I knew all the stuff to get, so it's like kind of easy. And we went and picked her up. She was still in the hospital. It was crazy, like it was just so weird. So I met Josh there, he'd come from work, I'd come from work, and met the social workers in the entrance to the hospital, and there was 3 of them, because there was our social worker, I think parent social worker or mum social worker, I'm not sure, and a student. Anyway, it was just so weird, because we went into the hospital and like there she was, and they held her before me. I was like, oh, it's my baby, and they're like, you know, they treated it as like a foster care situation, which I don't know if all the, like obviously our social worker knew we weren't going, like we were going to adopt, like it's different, I wasn't going as a foster carer, but at that moment we're treated as foster carers, so I don't know if she knew that. Anyway, so they all held the baby first, which was just hilarious, passing it around, and I was like, excuse me, I'm here. And then they said, oh, she's got a dirty nappy, here you are, handed it to me. I was like, thank goodness I have changed a newborn's nappy before, because that's quite a scary thing. And then I had to do it in front of 3 social workers, so that was fun. Anyway, brought her home. Oh yeah, and then just before we leave the hospital, they hand us like this massive briefcase, and they're like, oh, here's all the stuff you need to know for foster care. Because we hadn't had any training in foster care, it's all been in adoption, and it was like so weird. I was like, sorry, you think I'm gonna have time to read a briefcase full of information? Because I've got a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old and a newborn now, so I'm not gonna have time to do that. And I didn't, like I tried, but I just like, it was just too much to do, like there was so much going on, and obviously family wanted to come over, all that kind of thing. It was like crazy. And they're like, yeah, you have to, bought you a diary, you've got to note down everything, every like nappy change, every bottle, like you have to write down how much she eats, every time she sleeps, you have to note that down. I was like, okay, this is quite a lot. Anyway, and then they like come and check your parenting like every now and then, and they like every week, like they like just drop in and like see you, and it's really strange. So I don't know how that works when you like do the formal adoption route. It was just really weird. And then I had to take her to contact, which was really difficult, which I think I've mentioned in another video before. That was just actually the hardest thing I think I've ever had to do in my life, was doing that contact. You have to just like drop her off with these people who you know nothing about. And the issue for me is that I was like, well, they could be absolutely fine, like I don't know why she's been removed, because I'm not allowed to know anything about it. I have no idea really of her background. I don't know what's going on here. You hear about social services making these mistakes, and I'm like, I met them, they seemed really nice. You know, anyway, obviously it panned out well for me because we got to adopt her. I love that I got to get to know her birth parents a little bit. I feel like so privileged to have met them and to have spoken to them, you know, several times. I think that's really lovely. I write to them twice a year through like a letterbox kind of thing with the council, and I hope that we can kind of keep, like, I hope that when they read that, they don't really bite back, but I hope that like when they read that, they think of me and think of like a nice kind of relationship, you know, because I'd want that if there was someone who was looking after my child, like, so I thought that was really lovely. Yes, so that is essentially our adoption story. So it was, that first year was actually really lovely in many ways, because I was off for the whole year, I was off work. I had to take her to contact twice a week, which gave me quite a nice amount of structure, having to be out of the house for 2 days a week. And obviously I drop her off, 2 hours of contact, 2 hours of sitting in Costa. That's when my love for Costa came around, because I would just go and sit in Costa for 2 hours, read books, maybe do a little bit of shopping on my own. I mean, who gets that with a newborn? That was like amazing. Also the, like, that first 3 weeks in Josh had paternity leave, that was like the most fun ever, because obviously if you've just given birth, you don't want to go out, you're struggling with breastfeeding, you're sore. I was absolutely fine, obviously, because I hadn't actually given birth. So I was like, you know, up and out. Like, yes, obviously sleepless nights because she was up in the night for bottles, but I hadn't had that sleepless nights at the, like, an end of a pregnancy. So I was like, and I hadn't gone through childbirth, so I was like starting off from like absolutely fine. And then in the days we were like, you know, we were absolutely fine. So we just like went out, coffees, shopping, little walks, like we had the best time ever. And Josh was off for 3 weeks, and the other two were at school and preschool, and we had a great time. And I just literally like really enjoyed that year with her, and really enjoyed her baby stage. I thought it was really fun. Used to sit there and I'd get all these series of programs I was going to watch, and I thought, I'm just going to sit here for like the whole time that they're at school today, and I'll do like an hour of housework, and then I'll just sit and cuddle her all day and watch TV, because they were just like, you know, the attachment is really important. And literally I think that was one of the best things I could have done for her, really was. And obviously it massively benefited me too, so I loved it. She fit into our family so well. I do think like having a newborn and bringing them in is kind of almost like the natural way for children. So for my two, it was absolutely fine. I don't think there were like any downsides to that for them at all. It just fitted in really well. The only thing is they're a little bit funny about you calling, about the children calling you mum and dad while you're fostering, which I do understand, but like my two would speak about me as I'm her mum to the social worker. So obviously like our littlest was like 2 months old, she couldn't even understand, let alone say anything, but they would be like, oh, go here's mummy, and the social worker would tell them off every time, and I'm like, they'd be like, oh, she's not mummy, she's Beth. And I'm like, look, they're 4 and sort of 3 and 6 years old, like they don't understand that, like you've just got to let that go, like and I was like, oh, again, I feel like there was a lot where the social workers didn't really get that, like we'd gone in not to foster care, we'd gone into adoption, and this was the route that they'd asked us to do because they didn't have anyone else on the list for the foster to adopt. So, but you know what, it was just like such a positive experience for us. And now, you know, I feel for her it was the best thing. She hasn't gone from like birth parents to foster family to us, she's just gone from one to the other, and I think that was the best thing that could have happened for her too, and the least amount of trauma. And yeah, it's been amazing. It hasn't been always plain sailing, you know, since then. Well, I should probably say the adoption then went through fine, and yeah, that was all fairly straightforward actually for us. I have heard of people where it hasn't been so straightforward, and a couple who have done foster to adopt that have then the baby's gone back to birth families, and that's been like, I can't even imagine what that would be like. But for us it was a really plain sailing situation, and yeah, so since then it hasn't always been easy, you know. She has lots of kind of challenging behaviour. She really finds lots of things quite difficult, whether that's from trauma. Obviously I know that she was only 3 days old when she came to us, but she still would have actually gone through quite a lot of trauma just from that separation even, because they know sounds and smells, and you know, she would have known that she's been taken away from her birth mum, and things like that, and even things like you know, things that may have happened to her in the womb or may not have done, or that. And it's really interesting, and I haven't actually done a lot of research into that. There's like so much research out there about kind of in utero experiences and how, you know, those can lead to traumas as well, and so like she still does really struggle with certain things, and I talk to like lots of other adopters, and pretty much everyone else has the same too, and I think it's really not the easy way to go for parenting. You know, Sam's got autism, and he was definitely easier to parent than my littlest, or is, as there was, is, but she is equally an absolute joy to us and brings us lots of happiness, and is definitely the boss of our household. Yes, but I thought I'd just share with you my adoption story today, and if any of you have adopted, or you've got birth children you've adopted, let me know down below because I find that really interesting. Thanks for watching guys, see you again soon, bye!